Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's short lunchtime talk, which is all about May celebrations. In our series of short lunchtime talks, some of them are aimed at groups and individuals who might be thinking about doing some research. Now that hopefully things are easing. Other ones are just talks about aspects of our collections, aspects of our services, such as the Worcestershire Treasures series that we've been doing. And today it is all about May celebrations. I will just wait a moment in case the people are about to join us. So all these talks that we have are on YouTube, and after we do them live and we end the stream, they should be uploaded for you to see later and for others to see later if you think that they would be interested. So my name's Paul. I'm the Learning and Outreach Manager at Worcestershire Archive and Archaeology Service. And in doing the core of this talk came from when I went on Dave Bradley's programme on BBC Hereford and Worcester about 10 years ago. And he would ask for something history related, and it was May. And so it was suggested, what about May Day? Those sort of celebrations. So we had a look, and we've been gathering things over the years that has been working with the collections. So as I said, it's all about May celebrations, and today we have two bank holidays every May, and often half term also falls within the month as well. So it is often the time for celebrations. All sorts of events and activities start happening now that the weather hopefully is warmer, and hopefully there is less rain, although that is always a perennial issue. And May has always been a special time with celebrations. It's been a special time in all sorts of ways, going back for communal events and celebrations and people to mark the times. And these are reflected to some extent in the archives, although it can be a bit difficult because digging and finding social history can be a little bit tricky, because that isn't often what the focus of the collections are about. A lot of the archives are all about the administrative and custodial history, about minutes of meetings, about money, about transfers of land, and newspapers didn't always used to cover things like that as well. So sometimes social history can be a bit difficult to delve into and to track down. It's picking up things from where you think it might be mentioned. We can also romanticise the past, and sometimes there is a danger of believing some of the Victorian antiquarians and thinking that there was an ideal time in the past for some of these things. But sometimes there can be misunderstandings, or things have changed. And for instance, looking back in the newspapers in the mid-19th century, there's an article which mentions about Hartlebury and aspects about life in Hartlebury, and the person writing about it is complaining that the Maypole is more about drinking than dancing these days, and was saying that the wake, the local fair, it was suffered and not encouraged. Another article in 1844 was said about it was rarer to see maypoles nowadays, and was bemoaning the fact that many villages didn't have one and didn't do it anymore. And a talk by E.A.H. Letchmere in 1853, all about folk customs, was complaining that some of these were drifting away, including maypoles, and that schools were not focusing on these, although as well mentioned that things that might have changed. And somebody was looking back at Worcester with the corn market and saying and bemoaning that various things had been taken away and it wasn't used for the same purposes, including May Day. However, there are plenty of evidence and things there. As I said, it was full of events: May Day, Wakes, Club Feast, Ascension Day, Rogationtide, Whitsun, although some of them merge, and some of the things like maypoles and Morris dancing and mummers plays could be used in any of these. Now, starting off with May Day itself, the start of the month, and there's a long tradition of bringing in the month of May with carols and flowers, seen as the start of the summer. We're having a May Queen, who it said was fought over symbolically by the King of Winter and the King of Summer. making garlands. And a maying is a verb and a noun, to go a maying. The maypole itself has had a varied history. Nowadays, like the picture that we have of Hallow, it's the children going round it. Although it's said that if you go back several centuries, it was actually more of a phallic symbol, and May Day events could get quite boisterous and raucous. Various places in the county had maypoles. Some of them had permanent ones, such as Hartlebury, Badsey and Offanem. Other places had quite a strong tradition with May Day and maypole dancing, such as Hallow. So these photographs are from the 1950s, and the May Queen, quite an honour to be chosen as that. I understand this Pat Gwilym was the May Queen. I think it's 1955 or 56. And a picture of the green on Hallow, the children on the maypole. And it was strongly supported by the school, and into the late 19th century, looking at the school logbooks, despite what Mr. Letchmere might have said, certainly Hallow schools supported it. And in the logbooks we see that 1863, 30th of April, the elder girls remained in school to make arrangements for May Day and sing through their different songs. 1st of May, school closed. The elder girls went round the village with their May Queen and arrived at the school at 3 o'clock, where they were met by all the other scholars, after which they went to the cricket field, where they were supplied with tea, buns, and engaged in various sports, which brings together several key aspects of the May celebrations: food and sports. And as for the years 1869, 30th of April, lessons as usual in the morning, afternoon devoted by the elder girls to making their wreaths and garlands. And yes, there is quite a gender divide here, that it's the girls who are described as doing their needlework and creating garlands and things like that. But as you can see in the pictures, the boys would take part in the maypole dancing as well. So another one of the photographs of Hallow in the past with its maypole. But it wasn't just May Day. There was various other activities, celebrations and festivals in the month. One of being which Rogationtide. There's Rogation Sunday, and then the days that follow, part of Rogationtide. It's when the crops were blessed and people went beating the bounds. This is outside St Helens in 1910, about to beat the bounds, go around the parish boundaries. I mean, it is said that the little boys were bumped or beaten at the key points on the parish boundaries so they could be reminded of where the boundaries were. Whether that's true or a little bit of exaggeration, not sure. But it was a key part, as well as being a religious moment of checking, of the opportunity to check the boundaries, check things as the weather was getting better. Also called gang days, from the Saxon word for walking. And anything like this, even though it may have other purposes, becomes a social occasion as well as people gather together. There was a drink called ganging beer that was drunk then, something brewed particularly for this day. And again, can be boisterous when people get together, and food and drink would be supplied afterwards. Today, mostly just some rural parishes do it, mostly fallen out, but some have kept it. And at various times, people do try and recreate, and there, as well, there is, and you can read in the newspapers reports about the different Rogationtide activities. This is 1854, as All Saints and St Clements in Worcester went beating the bounds, and people were being soaked with water as they went under the bridges, and some dangerous missiles were also hurled. And then, at the end of that, they went their separate ways to different places to have their food, drink, refreshments, and the children had their own as well. So anytime it gets together, opportunities for a few high spirits, and as I said, food and drink was often very important. So, and there's also a report, St Clements, Chaddersey Corbett in the 1860s revived their Rogationtide processions. It was a 20-mile hike around the boundaries, so it was no small matter. And it was mentioned that the vicar fell into the river when going by there, which caused a lot of hilarity. And then partway around, one of the local well-to-do people supplied amounts of food and drink for those who were on there. So again, the social aspect was always as important as anything else. And we also have other type of event that wasn't always in May, but many places it fell there, is the local wakes. Now these were fairs, and every village would have one, and there would be the usual games, sports, food and drink. It would be a holiday time for that particular day, and people would come together. This one is Offanem, and they would usually celebrate it at the end of the month, 29th of May, which is also Oak Apple Day, which I'll mention a little bit later. And we see the children here in the early 1950s going to church with their procession with flowers. And following that, they would then be going on to have their celebrations, their food, drink and sports. Interestingly, in the newspaper for that year, it did say that there had obviously been some disagreement about the football field and the recreation ground, presumably over where it should be held. However, it's in the way that newspapers, particularly in the past, can allude to. Everything was all sorted out in time, and so the children went to the field and enjoyed their sports. The high jump was apparently one of the highlights of the afternoon. It reported how high all the winners could jump. But there's also events for the adults as well, and competitions, of which one woman won a bunch of asparagus, and one of the men won a pig. And hopefully he was a farmer or somebody who knew what to do with the pig, and he was okay with winning one of those. And I think a lot of us, if we went somewhere and won a pig, we'd wonder what to do. And it reported another wonderful event had taken place. The children loved it. There'd been maypole dancing, although it did refer to, as I said, that they were a bit disappointed that the adult events weren't as well supported as they'd hoped. And going back into the Offanem School logbooks, we find all sorts of hints and things about the importance of the local wakes and the impact. 1878, they're saying it being the annual village wake, the children had a holiday this afternoon and were regaled with a tea drinking in Myatt's barn, winding up with diversions on the vicarage lawn. And then later, a week holiday was given for Whitsuntide, and an urgent appeal made to the children not to let the wakes interfere with the following week's attendance. 23rd of May. The attendance today was very poor and the children were too excited to do any earnest work. Then we have the holiday for the wake. Otherwise, the children would be off anyway. The school closed for the wake. At 3:30, tea was served to the school children and those recently left, and to the band. So usually there was a band who would lead the Littleton Silver Band in the one where in the photograph. You can't see them, but there's another photograph with the band leading them. Tea is provided by the subscriptions of the parents mainly, some of the managers contributing milk, etc. But the problem was that the different villages have different wakes, and so children would sometimes go from one to another. So we also have 31st of May being Littleton Wake. There was a rather small attendance this afternoon from the children of Bennett's Hill, Newtown, and some from the Cross going there. So if there's various wakes locally, you might go to each one even though you weren't supposed to, although there is also a hint that some of them might be helping parents sell things at some of these. 8th of June, the attendance has varied from 61 to 111. The weather and the local wakes have been to chief cause. Work has been somewhat interfered with, but has been satisfactory. And then it also mentions about the children being taught how to dance round the maypole, and this happening on several occasions for different people coming to the village to have a look and see them perform. And after 1852, Beryl's Worcester Journal, talking about somebody about offering them and giving an overview article about the village. It includes talking about the excitement of seeing a real genuine maypole at the end of the village street. It was given 15 years ago that the old one was accidentally broken, but had stood there as long as anyone can remember. And talk about the decorating the maypole, decorating with fresh flowers, boughs, the ancient customs. On the night previous to my visit, the villagers had danced round it and afterwards took tea in a neighbouring barn where they prolonged their happiness till a late hour. I said you also get club feasts and walks, which I think is sometimes a bit of a crossover with the wakes. These are the clubs were an early form, but they were a friendly society. It was a group where people would join together, pay a subscription. It would support each other if people fell on hard times, needed help, needed support. As it's sort of banding together to support one another financially. And usually each year they would have a celebratory event, a club feast or a club walk. Again, there'd be some food and drink involved and some activities. And again, looking at the into the records, quite often May would be a popular time as winter's over. It's a useful time to organise these. Also falling within the month is Ascension Day. Now this is a religious day, and there would be church services in many of the churches. But as with any other occasions, it's an opportunity for people to bring together, and if it's a holiday, that the name holiday comes from holy day, and opportunities for people to gather again with food, drink, and festivities. And so this reported Chaddesley Corbett in 19th century in the newspapers about children attending the Sunday schools assembling at the vicarage on the Thursday, and after enjoying sundry games were regaled with plum cake and tea, and the girls were awarded prizes. So again, it's and these are the days obviously when Sunday schools were very, very well attended, and they would have all sorts of outings, activities, and Ascension Day was just another opportunity for these to happen. As in many places, there would be some slight variation between when things would happen, and some places there'd be May Day, maybe the significant one, another one the Wakes, another one Whitsuntide, and so different changes throughout the county. Which brings us on to Whitsun, which comes usually in May but can just creep into June. Also called Pentecost, again a religious event, but it was for many years a public holiday, and it provided all sorts of opportunities for celebrations and festivities. Whitsun, with white, partly it's to do with the celebration of Pentecost, people wearing white for processions and at the time of baptisms in churches, but also potentially May was called White Month, and a couple of my pictures with hawthorn trees in blossom, sometimes known as the May blossom or the May tree, and some other fruit blossom as well, and with wild garlic and cowslip. There is a lot of white around, so potentially that gives its name to the period of time as well. And again, it was an opportunity for gatherings and festivities, very often with Sunday schools. So we have Lady Huntingdon's Free Church in Birdport, which is today Huntingdon Hall, the Worcester live venue. The children met at 3. It was considered unwise to take the children to a damp field, and so they were kept in the schoolroom where singing quiet games and a few words from the minister occupied the time. As we know from experience, although we have a couple of bank holidays in May and we have a day off, it seems that on a large number of occasions it is quite wet. And that was exactly the same in the past. And so frequently when I've been looking at some of these records, it mentions about damp holidays and festivities. So, tea, nuts, sweets and cake were served. And then there's also another reference that I could find that the All Saints Sunday School had done something very similar. And again, with it being with it being wet, that they did try and go out and to a field and have some activities, but they had to call a halt to it. But some of the boys did stay on and were running around and didn't mind the rain, being very British, making the best of the weather. And so there's often lots of outings. And as I said earlier, Sunday schools were very large. It mentioned in 1822, Bevis Worcester Journal mentions that 502 children from various different Sunday schools across the city went to Henwick Hill for tea and buns. So some of these, it was quite large numbers. I said Whitsuntide, Whit Monday became a bank holiday for many years until it was changed to being the last Monday of the month, so it didn't vary in terms of one year to another. You also had other opportunities as well with the coming of the railways and later on coaches and buses. You could be various outings and excursions. I love this one from 1849 that talks about excursions from Worcester, Bromsgrove, Droitwich to London and back, which seems quite adventurous in 1849 to do that sort of thing and be able to get there and back on the relatively early days of the railway. It also talked about then London to Paris and back and London to Brussels and back, so almost implying that you could go from Worcester, Bromsgrove and Droitwich to Paris or Brussels in changing trains. And then Abbott's Morton and the Earl of Evesham, 1861, talk about the children of national schools having a half-day holiday at Whitsuntide and having a very handsome maypole, and it was prepared under Miss Price's superintendence and decorated. The happy party then called in the rounds at the houses of most of the principal inhabitants, by whom they were regaled with cake, wine, and cider. They afterwards took part in excellent tea provided for them by subscription and supplied in the schoolroom. So here it was again, their maypole was at the end of the month, but it follows the similar patterns to other ones. O'Capple Day was the choice for various different celebrations as well. This was celebrating the King Charles II and his escape, and with Worcester being the start of his escape in 1651 after the Battle of Worcester, it was strongly celebrated in the county. This is a picture of the Guildhall in Worcester being decorated with oak boughs. Offanem, as I mentioned earlier, they had their wake on O'Capple Day, 29th of May, and for 200 years this was a public holiday. And if it's a public holiday, that's a great excuse for gathering together and bringing together some of the traditions and activities that I was mentioning. So that brings together a brief overview. As I said, there's various different ones. There would be changes, from one part of the county to another, particularly in the days before you had, media covering even the county and the country. People would have their own particular local celebrations. They would choose when they want to do it, and so often there would be a continual one as from place to place around the county. And so there were various things in common: the maypole dancing if they had it, and the food, the treats, the sports that people would be doing. Some of them, things like gurning, pulling faces through a horse's harness, climbing the greasy pole, sprinting, the high jump were regular ones. And then often there'd be other entertainments as well, with that little silver band always at the Offanem Wakes, for instance. But things do change over time. It is easy to look back and think of a golden age, but as I said at the start, when you look back, people in early to mid-Victorian times were sometimes complaining things were dying out. It's a matter of sort of delving in and having a look and see what you can find and picking these out, because sometimes we can also romanticise the past as well. I should have said, this picture that I used for the start and the end is late 19th century maypole dancing in Badsey, from an archive collection that came to us of a number of photographs and documents and things to do with the village of Badsey. So thank you for joining us, and I hope that if you've got any events this month, that they go well, and that hopefully this coming bank holiday will be nice and sunny, and it will be one of those that will be recorded as one of the damper ones, and where they have to adapt, and that we can enjoy this coming bank holiday. So as I said, thank you for joining us, and hope you can join us for future weeks for our short lunchtime talks. Thank you very much. Bye.